Welcome back, or hello for the first time, to my Ben 10 retrospective series. Now, while these Ben 10 videos are standalone pieces of content, this is the third and final part of my full series retrospective. So far in the series, we have gone through the early years of Ben 10 with the original series, first live action movie, a 3D animated film, and the Ben 10 game shows. Yeah, they were a thing. We also looked at all of Alien Force and Ultimate Alien, plus the second live action movie in the second part of the retrospective. But today, we're going to talk about the changes of Ben 10, mainly focusing on the final big series for Ben 10 before it would be rebooted. This is where we see the biggest changes to the series. Unlike last time where it was just Ben grown up a little bit, here for both Omniverse and the eventual reboot following, the art style would drastically change. When it came to Omniverse, I never watched it as I thought it was a reboot itself, but come to find out years later that it does continue Ben's story after Ultimate Alien, just with a new art style. So for this final part of my retrospective series of Ben 10, everything here is all brand new to me. Clearly, Omniverse is the most standout here as the art style is solely unique to this iteration of the series, giving it a look that harkens back feelings slightly to Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated and Transformers Animated specifically, and there's a reason why. Because the character designs, the backgrounds, the colors for Omniverse were done by the person responsible for those shows as well, Derek J. Wyatt, giving Omniverse a very specific and distinct identity over any of the different series thus far. Sadly, Derek passed away back in 2021. Already personally being a fan of Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, I am highly looking forward to Omniverse and what it has to offer and enjoy the new look to the show, which for everything we've already been through in the Ben 10 universe, looks to be a fun ride. So let's explore the final part of Ben's story as well as the direction the show would take later on with the reboot, as well as what is next for Ben 10. Once again, and for the final mention of it, it's hero time.
Now a word from our sponsor.
This video is brought to you by Genshin Impact. You know, the Genshin Impact, the action RPG that's available on every current console, phone, and PC to play it on. This is a very special weekend. We are celebrating the game's literal icon itself, Paimon, and it's about time we start showing some real appreciation for our helpful adventure buddy. So please join me in celebrating our Genshin icon, Paimon, with the hashtag #BeingGenshinIcon right now on Twitter. It's easy, it's fun, and all you have to do to celebrate along with us is first take a selfie doing the iconic icon pose alongside of Paimon, then include the hashtag #BeingGenshinIcon, and boom, you just post it to Twitter. But the fun doesn't stop there. Genshin Impact will be attending New York Comic-Con 2022 from October 6th through the 9th, where you can explore a world of Genshin Impact adventures with them. So if you are attending New York Comic-Con at the Javits Center this weekend, make sure to stop by the Genshin Impact booth at booth number 4118, where they will be giving out some free goodies like Paimon wigs and posters, so you don't want to miss out on this fun opportunity. But there is a secret bonus gift as well. If you dress up like Paimon and post your selfie on Twitter doing the Paimon pose, also adding the hashtags #BeingGenshinIcon and Paimon Phenomenon, show the Genshin Impact staff at the booth and you'll receive a Paimon badge and Paimon acrylic stand. Limited to the first 40 Paimon fans to do so make sure to be quick. So hop on Genshin Impact by downloading the game from the link in my description, have fun celebrating Paimon, and thanks so much to Genshin Impact for sponsoring this video.
Anytime, guys.
Being big fans of Ben 10 since the original series, Derek, along with writer, director, producer, and storyboard artist Matt Youngberg, would feel like a pretty good pair to oversee a lot of Omniverse. Both had worked on the previous series Ultimate Alien, with Matt directing a good handful of episodes and Derek doing some freelance work on the series. Now, with Derek moving up to leading the art direction of the series, he wanted to make sure no matter what, it paid homage to the original series and the legacy Ben 10 was already building. One thing we have learned from past series is that thanks to Cartoon Network constantly having different eras of what the channel focuses on, whether it was the action cartoon era, the live action era, or the more modern era that would build out more after the incredible rise of both Adventure Time and regular show, Ben 10 was such a huge property to the network, bringing in more money and notoriety than most things not just on their network, but in general. Cartoon Network always had a plan to reinvent Ben 10 for the times, knowing when to end the series and look to give the series a refresh when it returns. This also can stem from toy sales and reinventing the look of the show once again so your action figures and other various toy lines can get a refresh as well. Same characters, new looks, more sales. How could it go wrong, right? Well, it definitely, for the viewer, is a big leap. You're so used to one thing, and while it's still the same in terms of advancing the same story, it is wholly unique in its approach. It probably led to a lot of people, like myself, to not give it the initial time of day based on judging a book by its cover, and thinking it's something else entirely. I got several comments on both of my previous Ben 10 videos mentioning similar experiences falling off of the series at this exact point. Omniverse, however, is such a large addition to finish off the Ben 10 series, and a surprisingly nice, well thought out, and well executed sci-fi finale that left me having a larger appreciation for Ben 10 overall. Premiering on September 22nd, 2012, lasting for 8 10-episode seasons, ending on November 14th, 2014, Omniverse is a bold and exciting end that gives fans of the series a payoff that may retcon a few things for the sake of telling the story the size of the universe, nay, the multiverse.
Say goodbye to Daddy.
We start off Omniverse not far after the ending of Alien Force. Just kidding, we have a flashback first to young Ben 10 fighting Malware, an important villain who isn't impressed with the big savior Ben Tennyson. But when Ben turns into Feedback, a brand new alien, he seemingly easily takes him out. Then cutting back to 5 years later as Ben, Gwen, and Kevin are chasing down Zombozo. After also easily taking him down, Gwen and Kevin tell Ben that they are leaving. Gwen is heading to college early and Kevin is going with her. Ben at first tries to play it up that he can handle things on his own as an alien force of one, letting his returned ego take over his attitude towards them leaving. He continues this one-man army after visiting the plumber base under Bellwood, when an alert calls for attention and in a very cocky way tells Grandpa Max that he doesn't need any backup. He's him.
I'm me!
Yeah, that's what I said. Ben arrives at what seems to be a crater where a building used to be, as we see him being watched ominously by a mysterious figure. I mean, both of those things go together pretty well, I guess, as we will come to know that this is Kyber, the galaxy's greatest hunter, who has his eyes sought after Ben. Along with him is his mechanical canine, Jimmy Neutron Goddard.jpg, I'm sorry, Zed. When he sicks Zed after Ben, she transforms into a raging rhino-like alien as Ben gets the wrong alien to come out of the watch like usual, nothing new there. Zed backs off as Kyber knows that Ben 10 will be his greatest catch to hunt down, and this is definitely not the last we'll see of these two, as we further will learn of their goals and reasonings for going after Ben. Through this little fella here, we learn that some other aliens are offering protection to these aliens and their businesses for a fee, but if they don't do that, then they are the ones that these aliens and businesses fear. Yeah, there's a literal alien mafia racket going on. As Ben investigates other businesses about this, Ben sits by to see how this racket is run, and once there is definitive proof, Ben sizes up the troublesome trio, and not before this other mysterious dude gives him some food to eat in every condiment you can ever want. What a nice random stranger that won't be a major surprise in just a few minutes. Once the battle starts, there is a lot of damage being dealt to the store, even though Ben is supposed to be the one helping them out from that not happening. The group end up placing a bomb in the store and running away after Ben becomes Ben again. But just in time to save the day is this guy. Who is he? Good question. Oh, yeah, that's Rook, a highly trained and skilled plumber sent by Grandpa Max to aid Ben on this mission and become his new partner. Ben, however, keeps his attitude about being a lone wolf and tries to keep rejecting Rook from being his partner. But Rook's good nature keeps him around to help Ben and to constantly feed his ego. He's also got this really cool weapon called a proto tool. It can literally do just about everything, from being a blaster to a bow to a sword. Heck, it can scan QR codes and help you find parking parking in a crowded city if you really needed to. Oh, and then Ben turns into Blocks, a Lego Mega Bloks looking dude, as they take the bomb that they can't defuse outside and accidentally, or I guess not so accidentally, fling it into an abandoned building. But what it opens up after they chase the bad guys underground is a whole city underneath Bellwood called Undertown. Surely that was the best name that they can come up with, but the other options were pretty good too. As the chase heats up, we see just how skilled at this plumber stuff Rook is, showing up Ben's clumsy nature with finesse at every encounter, and an all too serious attitude that makes him very kind and unaware of Ben's sarcasm. Lo and behold, that Kyber dude is still after them, sending out Zed once again, as she is now transformed into another beast. Something's pretty special about that dog. I wonder what it is. Saying that as if I wasn't going to answer that shortly anyway. After she gets called back off once again, the hunt for the other three mafioso aliens continue. We get to meet the head of the operation, Siphon, Vilgax's old push-around servant who now does his own things, like creating an alien mafia shakedown racket, among other things he gets into throughout Omniverse. I mean, who needs Vilgax when you have Bill Gax? Yes, this is a real character. At the end of the day, the mission ends with Ben facing Zed once again and Rook going after Siphon, with both of them taking each of the bad guys out. And that is our introduction to Omniverse. It gives you that immediate same sense of feeling of what we've had before with Ben 10. The action, the humor, and all of that, but it lightly establishes where we are going to go. Even though Ben is not sold on having a partner, he quickly puts that aside and offers an open welcome to Rook as his partner, mainly because he got him some chili fries to eat since Ben was starving and all he wanted these past 2 episodes was just to get some food. But in general, he accepts him in as his partner. While their dynamic isn't quite there just yet between Ben's sarcasm and overconfidence and Rook's more serious and take what you say literally personality, or I guess lack thereof personality, but that's why there is a whole series ahead that would build upon their relationship as partners and become a better unit overall. We also get to see a taste of some new aliens as well, as a majority of the Andromeda aliens from Ultimate Alien Ben ends up using on accident for some reason. I mean, it's cool to see him again, but out of all the aliens, we get back to back to back to back these specific aliens, none of which came in handy for the situation, by the way. Except for Terraspin. Turtles are the best. Now, as opposed to the usual 2 or 3 larger story arcs, Omniverse features several that by the end of it all kind of focus back on one central plot. But before we go through this journey, let's talk about the new aliens of Omniverse.
Wow!
My turn. My turn.
So aside from the obvious redesigns which pretty much affect the look of all the previously known aliens that make an appearance here, there are still a lot of new aliens that get introduced in Omniverse. First and foremost, the first new alien we see, and easily the coolest and my favorite here in the new bunch, is Feedback. And what feels to me like a fusion of Static Shock and Freakazoid, his alien species is a conductoid, and deals in, yeah you guessed it, electricity. Honestly, he's just pretty OP in any battle he's brought out for. Next, there is Blocks, a Segmentasapien, and he's just Legos. It's simple as that. But what makes him cool, even if you may not like him, since I've heard a lot of hate for this character, is his shape-shifting abilities with the Blocks. Gravitac, a Galilean, is a rock dude that has the power of gravikinesis. For being this beastly creature with the body of the Tasmanian devil, he can levitate, produce a force field, and oh yeah, he can generate black holes. This thing scares me. Ballweevil, an unknown species, ooh, a mystery. It's just like a cute little beetle. A cute little beetle that can shoot frickin' plasma balls at you, so that's pretty cool, yeah? Crash Hopper, an Orthopteran, is a powerful grasshopper-esque alien that has a strong, sharp head and can jump really well. If the superhero stuff doesn't work out for this one, the NBA could be a viable option. Astrodactyl, another unknown species. Okay, the plot thickens here. But come on, this is just a pterodactyl. Except the wings are a jetpack. He's fast, is immune to gas, and deals in energy for its attacks. Wakatrout, an ichthyparambuloid. Yeah, yep, that's exactly what I think of when I see this slippery little fella. But I mean, come on, what's not to love? He has a strong little tail to go along with his strong little body. If Feedback wasn't my favorite, this one might be, and for no other reason than, look at the funny little blue fish. I walk you down, I walk you. Molestache, a Nigel Thornberryan. I'm joking, it's another another unknown species, but I think my name for it fits very well. But just look at how ready for work he looks. Just some dead eyes, killer retro stash, and he's a mole. His mustache, though, seriously, is no joke. He can fly, and it spins around really fast, and I don't know, he's cool. Pesky Dust and Nemuna is a little fairy that can enter your dreams and understand the secrets that you hold. Listen, Tim in Philadelphia, we all know what you did, and you won't get away with it. Kickin' Hawk, another unknown species, but you know what? I'm grateful for that because some of these names are getting really rough to pronounce, okay? Kickin' Hawk is a hawk that can kick. Not much more to it, honestly. Toepick is another one of those species unknown, but like, what do you call this? An ogre? Are we going to get kicked out of a swamp? Well, it does have a very scary face under that face city belt, so at least it has that going for him. Vampire, a Vladit, looks like if you mixed Batman Beyond and the Joker into one character. He can hypnotize people. Whoa, why do I have this sudden urge to make chicken sounds? Gut Rot, a species unknown, has an upset stomach. He makes gas, okay? There's no other way to put it. That Mr. Toot Suit here sharts around the galaxies, saving them from evildoers while evil is brewing in his own tummy. Atomics, species unknown, is a walking natural disaster, and at best, a Dragon Ball Z reference. Bullfrag, an Incursion, reminds me of a Battletoad, cause he do be a very leggy frog, and he's got a long tongue. Last but not least is the Worst. No, for real, that's his name. The Worst. An Atrocian, the name fits. This dude is just in his underwear, and he's doing the whole Steven Universe belly button gem thing, and apparently, on top of all of that, he's indestructible. Neat. Omniverse, like I mentioned, has this non-stop rising action and stake building that previous entries in the Ben 10 series didn't perfect per se. While the previous stories and big overarching plot lines were really good, it always felt slightly disconnected, telling these different stories, moving on from one to another, with the main connection just being Ben's overall journey. But in Omniverse, each and every major story moment builds upon the last, resulting in a story that feels a lot more focused that by the end of it makes the whole series of Ben 10 feel like it was planned out like this from the beginning. But that's because this series kind of makes it so. There's a few retcons here and there, but it still comes together very strong. Now, we already know that both Ben and Rook spend their time working together to become a pretty good fighting duo, which at first is definitely rocky with their personalities not always meshing together all too well, but it still offers a nice look into who Ben is now at this point in his life. He has this cocky attitude, and if anything, it is at an all-time high that can still frustrate viewers that there is little growth for him in that department. And ever since Alien Force, it feels like it's been a regression from the progress we had made there. Things for them don't start really getting interesting until they come across a Contumelia ship floating above Earth, so they go and investigate it. The Contumelia are essentially the creators of the universe, those who were here before here was a thing. It's not so much that the ship itself that is interesting, but what's inside that is interesting. An Annihilarg, or the full name being this. Yeah, I'm not even going to try and pronounce this one, but it's a device that can create or destroy universes. Anyway, they aren't the only ones there, and plenty of others are after this device as well, leading into an extensive fight all the way back down to Mr. Smoothie. Man, this place just can't catch a break, ever. In the final moments of the battle for the device, it gets activated, and with no way to stop it from going off and destroying the universe, Ben transforms into Alien X, who now looks like the Crimson Chin. Or Jay Leno. Sorry, didn't mean to break the tension here. The Ben tension. Okay, I'll stop. But just like that, as he becomes Alien X, the universe is wiped out. This moment here actually kind of left me stun-locked. Like, this is the biggest and worst thing that has happened in Ben 10 thus far. We've always had threats of the universe ending, whether it be from the Omnitrix or other evil alien plans, but Ben usually saves the day before we ever get to this moment. So to see him fail in a way and everyone he knows and loves are being wiped out from existence is a pretty powerful moment that elevates Omniverse pretty heavily. Ben watches as the universe around him gets destroyed, while he is in the mind space dealing with Serena and Bellicus for control of Alien X. Here, he finally is able to start unlocking the possibilities of Alien X and the powers he can wield, convincing the other two voices that he needs the power of Alien X to recreate the universe and undo the destruction that has been done. In doing so, however, this recreation is not 100% the same as before, some slight differences, but for the most part, the universe is put back together just as quickly as it was destroyed, showing the true unrivaled power of Alien X. When we return to the others who are after the device as well, give up on it actually working, thinking that it didn't do anything and they all just leave. Ben, however, tries to explain what actually happened over smoothies with the others, but they don't really believe that happened. I mean, to be fair, it's quite hard to believe that you no longer existed and everything was reset back to this moment as if nothing even happened, and only one person knows what actually happened. Even though Ben is in new clothes and Mr. Smoothie itself is slightly different, no one can really claim it was something else before, just things being the way they've always been. Which they are, but like, a couple things are different, I guess. I can't emphasize how much of a unique concept this is, especially since doing something so universe-altering may come with some future consequences. Foreshadowing? Maybe. Just keep watching, alright? I haven't slept in weeks.
Fine. Don't believe me.
Hey! No fair!
You remember this guy? Or thing from the 5 years ago flashback to the younger Ben 10? Well, he's back now and he doesn't just want the Omnitrix anymore, like every other villain in the series, but this time he wants to take down the creator of it, Azimuth. He also has help. That help is in the form of Kyber. Oh, hey look, he's back. I told you we'd revisit him and his dog. Also, there's this dude, or Doctor, excuse me sir, I didn't see the PhD, but yeah, this is Dr. Psychobos. Together, these three completely just wreck shop. First, this doctor here and Malware were able to create the ultimate defense against the Omnitrix, the Nematrix, a device that Kyber uses with his dog Zed, or his other pet, a Penuncian. What it does is transforms them into the literal predators of the aliens within the Omnitrix to counter Ben's squad of aliens. I mean, just look at these. Some of these are menacing, and some are just whatever the heck this thing is. This whole concept just makes the battles that much tougher for Ben, since these predators are direct species that go after the species of aliens Ben has in general. But why is Malware on this warpath? Well, before we meet him for the first time at the start of the series, he originally was born different from other galvanic mechamorphs, giving off a yellow appearance and incomplete compared to the others on his homeworld, Gavin B, a moon that orbits Galvin Prime, aka Galvin Mark II, aka the home of Azimuth. Through his differences, Malware was promised by Azimuth that he would help fix him, but we all know Azimuth is a busy guy and his priorities usually lie elsewhere from smaller individual needs, leading Malware to become angered in the wait time, thinking that Azimuth only sees him as this failure of design and will toss him aside and forget about helping him. He finds a way to Galvin Prime and confronts Azimuth for the cure, but when Azimuth turns him down, he resorts to kidnapping his assistant at the time, Albedo, you know, before he was a Ben clone, but he brings him back to Galvin B, forcing him to use the cure that he also took with him to help him. Only problem is that the cure is unfinished, and Albedo was still good here, so he sabotages everything to take out Malware, but all it ends up doing is making him more powerful than ever, changing him into his red look and making him a powerful mechamorph. So like, in a way, he was cured from his weaker, frail state. From there, he tries going after the Omnitrix to become the combination of the two most powerful things Azimuth ever created, but during his fight with Ben back at the beginning of the series, he was able to get a partial DNA sample, which would be the next best thing, as here is where the PhD man himself, Dr. Psychobos, comes into play. Already having a dislike of the Galvin race, it was a no-brainer for him to help out and team up with Malware to create their own version of the Omnitrix, the Nematrix, and now they're in need of DNA samples. They reach out to Kyber in order to help hunt down the most ferocious and powerful predator competitor aliens out there that counter Ben's aliens. This is now piecing together this interconnected villain puzzle. But remember how Ben used feedback to defeat Malware the first time? Well, Azimuth warns Ben about the use of feedback. Yeah, you can say that he was giving Ben feedback on using feedback, but I'm not a comedian and that wasn't funny. You came here for the cartoons, but you stay for the Jordan cringe, right? Right? Whatever. Feedback is ultimately hurting Ben's ability to use any of the other aliens. But in comes Malware for a surprise attack like a computer virus. Okay, yeah, well his name makes a lot more sense now. He essentially pulls feedback out of Ben's Omnitrix, leaving Ben with the new ability of no longer using feedback. Wow, that's not a very good power at all. Aside from that, let's cut to Malware, who exacts his ultimate plan by heading to Galvan Mark II. While Kyber and Doc Crab over there are keeping Ben and Azimuth busy, Malware literally blows up the moon, this being his own homeworld moon, Galvan B. And now he's able to absorb this power, becoming this giant hulking monster of Mechamorph, and Ben can't defeat him. He's basically powerless. Even Way Big can't take him down, resulting in Malware absorbing Ben inside of him. While things are looking pretty grim for Ben, during this time inside of Malware, he is able to come to a realization and come to terms with himself, specifically over the loss of feedback, which was kind of like his favorite alien. I mean, just look at him, he truly just is the best. Here, Ben is able to restore feedback fully into his Omnitrix, so when he bursts out, he is able to actually take Malware on with an alien who can finally do some real damage, resulting in Malware being defeated. But his remnants may, dare I say, remained around for another day. But as time goes on throughout the series, Ben and Rook become a lot closer and work better together as they deal with other various threats and villains, like dealing with Albedo again, because why not have a fun little encounter with him taking out Azimuth's brain? Heck, at one point, Ben and Rook liberate the Anar system from Lord Transil. He's kind of like a vampire, hence the name. While all of these side stories do a fine job of providing entertainment as well as building the connection of these two characters, outside of this, their growth, and I mean more specifically Ben's growth, is still pretty non-existent. That same original charm of enjoying Ben just being Ben is still there. Every season has an overall theme or arc to it, making each season of 10 episodes feel self-contained but overall connected to one another, with the complete rogues gallery of villains and other characters making a return. Charmcaster returns to attack Gwen at her college. Heck, just Gwen in general gets some more good episodes revolving around her at her school. Like in one episode called Mystery Incorporeal, funny play on Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated because of Derek Wyatt, it involves Darkstar coming back and creating a cult and a plot that involves Gwen so he can access the Ledger domain in order to absorb the mana there and become all-powerful. Then there's Kai Green, a childhood crush that Ben had. They end up needing Ben and Rook's help because the Forever Knights are back and around to their old tricks again, now going after the Excalibur sword, which is hidden in Big Ben. They do show up a little bit earlier doing the whole erase all alien DNA thing, so even after what happened in Ultimate Alien, nothing's really changed. And speaking of the previous series, what happened to Julie? Well, her and Ben broke up, all because of some heated gamer moments while on the phone with Julie, with her misinterpreting what he's saying, and Ben not being aware of what he's actually saying. So now they're just friends. Good for you, Julie, you deserve better. Like Dean 15. Who is he? I made him up. Okay, yeah, maybe all this Ben 10 in such a short amount of time is rotting my brain. I can't tell if that's in an actual good way or a bad way. There's even an episode in the 4th season that I mentioned before in my Secret Saturdays video where Ben gets visited by the Saturdays themselves when they come to Bellwood in pursuit of Chupacabra attacks being reported, coming together to take down the new team-up of Vivi Argost and Dr. Animo, titled TGIS, or Thank God It's Saturday, wherein which we get to see the Saturdays return, albeit with a lot of changes, from their complete designs being redone as well as none of the voice actors returned, except for Argost. While it was great to see these characters again, it certainly had a different feel, but Ben does have a crush on Drew Saturday, and I completely understand. There was also this incursion arc that brings in Atea, who brings back our favorite PhD alien, Dr. Psychobos, and they try and invade Earth. Princess Luma comes in for an attack, and in that episode we learn that Julie has a new boyfriend. Sorry, Dean 15, you were just a little too late. All in all, Omniverse packed a lot of storylines, characters, villains, and interesting plots within each mini arc, or I guess mini season. And I was genuinely surprised that even if you can consider some of these stories as filler, they were all still pretty well executed in world building with legacy characters. I feel we get so much more of Ben 10 pumped into the series than ever before. The real excitement, however, ramps back up at the next big part of the story when Paradox shows up, and the multiverse is at stake. It's your kids, Marty. Where we're going, we don't need roads. So get this, remember our good old reoccurring villain who we've defeated over and over and over again, Vilgax? Well, he teams up with another foe who we've seen a few times here and there, Eon, the evil older Ben from a different timeline. Together, those two are time traveling around, putting together an army of literal evil variants of Ben 10 from all these different universes and timelines. For what, you may ask? For war, of course. An evil alien's favorite pastime. Albedo is there because he hasn't learned his lesson in working with Vilgax before. Mad Ben, an ode to Mad Max because this Ben is Australian. A zombified Ben named Benzaro, a darker-haired Ben who goes by Bad Ben, and of course, a gothic Ben named... I'm not even gonna say this one. Now, this battle would take place on an alternate universe Earth, where the Ben that is native to it never found the Omnitrix because it never existed here in the first place. To confront Vilgax and Eon, Ben and Paradox assemble the good Ben-Vengers consisting of Gwen 10. The Gwen from that one-off non-prime timeline Ben 10 story where she gets the Omnitrix. Ben 10,000 from an alternate future who can literally mix and match his aliens together. And Ben 23. I forgot to mention Ben 23. Ben 23 is this Justin Bieber-esque alternate timeline Ben who, without guidance from Grandpa Max, falls into those fame and fortune temptations Ben Prime had and struggled with as a kid. If you thought Ben, regular Prime World Ben, was a lot to handle with his ego and his personality, well, you ain't seen nothing yet. Ben 23 is all of that, but to the max. Being a complete, self-absorbed, ego-driven, only doing the alien butt-kicking when it brings attention and admiration, and he hates smoothies. Okay, that's where I draw the line, bud. Yeah, it's right there. That's a pretty good solid line. Unfortunately, this battle was just another distraction as Vilgax has this Chronosapien time bomb that he uses to wipe out every Ben from every timeline, universe, or what have you. All except for this dude. This Ben has no watch, but our main Ben, Ben Prime, gives No Watch Ben the Omnitrix before he disappears. Paradox steps in and grabs No Watch Ben, but now has a Watch Ben, as they travel back in time to the point in the Prime timeline when Ben first gets the Omnitrix, where we see a little bit of a retcon. Or was it? I don't know, decide for yourself. But instead of it going to Ben because of the close matching DNA, because of Xylene shooting it out and hopefully getting it to Max, the Omnitrix was guided to him from Paradox, and No Watch Ben, but now has a Watch Ben. There has to be a better name for him. Let's call him Plain Jane Ben. That's a luxury watch joke for those who didn't get it. We end up eventually at the same spot, but instead of Plain Jane Ben being in the mix, he is left behind in the space-time portal until Vilgax sets off the bomb, re-wiping out the Bens once again, and as soon as that happens, this last remaining Ben jumps out and is able to become clockwork and reverse the time bomb, bringing back all of the good Ben-Vengers and sending home the evil Ben League of Doom, and hands back the Omnitrix to Ben Prime, and then they all beat up Vilgax. And can I just say, I am loving this. First we destroy the universe and then recreate it, and now all the versions of Ben die, causing a retelling of how Ben 10 got the Omnitrix thanks to Plain Jane Ben and Paradox, tying it into a time loop to this story as it was all supposed to lead to this moment. It would be crazy if they did that again, but on a larger scale later on, right? Well, I guess we'll see soon enough. All of that though was just the start to season 6. The main arc of the season would involve something we briefly touched on in the last video, but we are going to explore Kevin's past as it resurfaces.
Ever been to summer camp?
Okay, I wrote that pun before realizing that the title of the first Rooters episode is the same name. Parallel thinking, joke thief, who knows, but we're moving on. The Rooters themselves are a former Special Operatives division of the Plumbers who created a separate faction all their own. Their main goal is to blow up and act like they don't know nobody. Their main goal is to eliminate Ben 10 as they believe he is not worthy of the Omnitrix, and he could be a major threat to the universe itself. However, the main person of focus here is Cervantes, Cervantes, the leader of the Rooters, who eventually runs into a young Kevin who has just stabilized his powers and uses his powers that he finds unique in an effort to literally take Earth children and fuse them with alien DNA to become some form of hybrid, thus creating the group known as the Amalgam Kids. He sort of tricked them into joining this secret ops group, advertising it as a haven for those who feel like outcast or have no family to turn to for help. He knew that he can morph these kids into hybrids by turning himself into one. Yeah, that's why he's red now, if you haven't noticed. Manny, Pierce, Alan, and Helen, who we've met in the previous series, all are here as we learn how they fully become the way they are. They would be sent on dangerous and morally messed up missions that Kevin put in perspective for himself, knowing that this was beyond the more juvenile and petty crime he was into. You know, the little things. And no, I'm not talking about Denzel Washington's movie. It's a form of expression, keep up. It all came to a head when eventually the mission was to focus on Ben 10 and take him out, as the group would be referred to as the Ben 10 Hit Squad. And through this, Kevin gets infested by the Omnitrix again and loses control of himself. As this project of his has now failed, he wiped the Amalgam Kids' mind and sent them free back into the Null Void. And now in the current part of the timeline, Cervantes caught wind of what Ben did in recreating the universe after, you know, it blew up. He tries going after Kevin, in which Ben protects Kevin, but Kevin has no memory of him or why he'd want to come after him. Slowly though, he does recall these repressed memories. At the end of the season, they go after the rest of the Amalgam Kids to warn them before Cervantes comes after them. So while Kevin goes and gets Alan, Ben, Rook, and Gwen go round up Manny and Helen. Where's Pierce? Ow. Oh yeah, he died last series. Kevin wants to put an end to all of this, so in facing down Cervantes with Ben and the rest of the team following suit into the Null Void, Cervantes uses his controlling powers to make the Amalgam Kids fight for him against Ben and the others. But Kevin wasn't controlled yet. He eventually is persuaded by Cervantes based on the evils of Ben from their past, and Kevin transforms back into his monstrous form, ready to face off against Ben and the others. Eventually, however, after some pretty convincing fighting that ends up leaving a permanent scar on Kevin's chinny chin chin, and chasing around the group, Kevin was never really persuaded and instead is in full control of his powers in this form now. He only was doing this to get close to Cervantes in order to strike him at the perfect moment and release control of the Amalgam Kids, and after defeating him, they leave him stranded in the Null Void. Man, karma really is hitting this dude hard. It was a nice little arc to finally get some more information on Kevin's past, learn about how these kids became these alien human hybrids, and a nice finale to their group's story. We also get to see how far Kevin has come from everything he's been through. Even if he had us fooled in the first half, he really came through and saved the day for his found family that because of him, he feels responsible for the way they are. But like what I said about karma, it does come back around to everyone. Right before that confrontation, Ben's luck catches up with him as he has done so much that changes the state of the universe itself. Like the universe blowing up and then him making an almost exact replica of it, like nothing ever happened. And I foreshadowed this earlier, remember? Well, it turns out that he was summoned to Space Court. It's like regular court, but it's in space to serve justice. Okay, fine, I'll say it's space justice. The Celestial Sapiens bring Ben to their intergalactic court on the grounds of interfering with the overall will of the universe and recreating it using the powers of a Celestial Sapien and violating the Multiversal Preservation Act. They initially find him guilty, but there is a way out of this that he opts for, and that is trial by combat against the Galactic Gladiator. And here, Ben finally fully gets the control of Alien X unlocked and is able to defeat the Gladiator. And the Celestials now understand that it wasn't Ben's sole decision alone, but through the actions of Serena and Bellicus, clearing his name and getting let off scot-free. And now everyone knows the truth about what actually happened, and no longer thinks his story is crazy. Is that a rare Ben W? But what is actually wild here, more so than anything, is that there is an in-universe explanation for the show-changing art styles that can be applied in any way you look at it.
Asthma's voice and appearance changed on at least 3 occasions.
The Celestial Sapiens themselves have done essentially what Ben has done before before and have interfered and altered the universe on many occasions, but it explains that the art style being different was the result of an interference from the celestial sapiens themselves. And you know what? That's so funny and such a fun fourth wall break to give closure as to why change the look, you know, aside from toys and all that. Wow, so far, Omniverse has done nothing but surprise me in the best of ways throughout the entire series. But alas, we haven't even explored the best part of it all yet.
That is a valuable lesson.
Last door on the left.
What do you think of when I say the word Scourge? Do you picture Squishy, the Zygarde cell from the Pokemon anime? Well, you should, because that's kinda what you get, this little green octoblob looking thing. Originally planned for evil uses because of Kyber, Scourge ends up siding with Ben since the Omnitrix has more DNA samples to offer. He's a slime biote and are claimed to be extinct, but like, he's right there. Basically, Scourge feeds off of the DNA, attaching himself to the source or host without being able to be removed, unless, you know, he really wants to leave, I guess. Scourge is also pretty useful to the host, as he can adapt parts of the DNA into body parts, use their abilities, and become some sort of weapon or object based on said DNA being used. He's a cute little add-on that will impact part of the ending in a way. He's also a little sassy, and I can respect him for that. Speaking of the ending, Omniverse truly does something special and grand to wrap up the whole story of the series, since the reboot is, well, a reboot. This is it for the main story of Ben 10. So technically, we have already looked at the first part of the Time War, dealing with Vilgax and the Boom, and all of the Bens dying except for plain Jane Ben, and we even had a whole time loop. Our next part focuses on these two characters from the future, Exoskull and Subdora, whose mission is to search throughout time and the multiverse for the pieces of Maltruant and jumble Maltruant back into one piece. Throughout these time-traveling fights and efforts, Ben eventually ends up fighting alongside his future self's son, good old Ken 10. This mission isn't just something that has stopped then and there. We see this journey going all the way to a 36-year-old Ben 10,000, who is still trying to stop a fully put-together Maltruant who is putting together his own corrupt version of the Annihilard, for his goal of going back to the creation of the universe, the beginning of time, where everything started, and fully having control and shaping it in his own vision. Now, in order to catch up with him and his dastardly plan, Ben Prime and Rook hop on a sick time-traveling motorcycle combined ship thing. Whatever it is, it's really cool, and if there's a toy of it, I want it. Close enough. Quickly, they are catching up with Maltruant, and once they do, they are able to knock him out of the time stream and into the 1770s, where they team up with none other than the one and only George Washington. Alright, sure. Maltruant sends out a distress call to his location of his crashed ship, leading us to the reveal of a young Vilgax who, in exchange for helping him fix his chariot of time travel, is gifted a Chronosapien time bomb. Come to think of it, how did Vilgax get that time bomb from earlier in the show when he killed all those Bens? Perhaps this is all part of the time loop. But here is where we also get the understanding of why Vilgax has a never-ending warpath mission to get the Omnitrix from Ben, firsthand seeing what the Omnitrix is and the power that it holds, vowing that it will be his. Oh, and at one point, George Washington shoots an axe out of a musket thanks to the help of electricity when a lightning bolt strikes a kite that was attached to the musket. That's the only way I know how to describe what you are seeing right now. This is awesome. And also, Ben essentially invented the name of the plumbers, which George Washington was already a part of before the name change, as well as the idea of a president and him being one. I don't remember reading that in school. Maltruant ends up hightailing it out and back into the time stream as our dynamic duo hop back in pursuit of him. At the end of the stream is an all-white void of nothing where they find a Contumelia ship, just like before towards the start of the series. On board, instead of Maltruant, Ben and Rook run into milkshakes? Well, not really. That would be just the weirdest and most random twist, but actually, it's the Contumelia themselves. Ben sees them as milkshakes, as Rook sees them as his father. This is because these are beings of the fifth dimension and are able to form the appearance of whatever the individual is seeing them as, what their heart desires most. Ben really likes his milkshakes. Maybe he's the one secretly funding the rebuilding of Mr. Smoothie after it's been destroyed just so many times over. They mention another guest on board, but they are not worried played as they are running an experiment, which is just them creating a universe, nothing too crazy for fifth-dimensional dairy-based products here. In the chamber of the ship, Maltruan is seen replacing the Annihilarg already in place to create a universe with his corrupt one. And we even get to see how he sees the Contumelia, and it's just 3 versions of himself. Yeah, he's more self-centered than Ben 23, no doubt about it. I mean, maybe shaping the universe in your own image could have told us that, but this right here, yeah, this seals the deal. Skurd uses the power of Chromastone mixed with making a celestial sapient sword grow from Ben's arm, which is able to penetrate through the impenetrable barrier, but as the Annihilarg falls down into the white void, Ben dives after it in a last-ditch effort, but it goes off. But luckily, this time he didn't fail. Ben was able to use Feedback's power at first to harness the energy, but he wasn't alone. The power of every alien combined are able to hold it back, as Ben throws the Big Bang level of energy at Maltruant, which folds his mechanical behind into an implosion, disappearing him from reality. Ben then steps on and crushes the device, leaving it shattered in pieces. The Omnitrix itself had a failsafe that wouldn't let Ben die, so at that last second gave him the strength to contain that explosion. Ben finally comes to the realization that no matter when the Watch would give him the wrong aliens he thought he needed to get the job done, that somehow they were always the right alien anyway, with the Watch knowing Ben more than he knows himself. The Contumelia offer Ben a chance to witness the birth of his own universe. How could you say no to that? So we see the start of time and space for this universe and the reveal of more Slimebiotes, as we learn that they are the building blocks of DNA to spread throughout the universe, creating diverse life within it. Skurd takes his rightful place to start humanity anew all over again. Paradox shows up, and now they are left with the pieces of Maltruant to go and disperse them once again throughout the universe, understanding that now Maltruant is stuck in a time loop, destined to repeat the same cycle over and over again, meeting the same results and the same fate every single time, ending with Ben and Rook looking rather bored with just doing, well, nothing. They just helped ensure the creation of the same universe they are living in now. So they have the idea of going off to explore the stars in which they just witnessed the birth of. Ben calls Gwen and tells her and Kevin to pack their bags, as Ben says,
"We're going on a road trip!"
thus ending the story of Ben 10. It all makes sense now. The whole story of Ben 10 is one giant time loop. Everything is meant to happen as it happens and will repeat itself over and over again from Ben's start and end this story at the creation of the universe, symbolically ending back where Ben 10 originally begun, on a road trip. I guess it really all started when that alien device did what it did.
I've so been looking forward to this. What is she doing here?
This wasn't my idea.
I thought it would be fun if your cousin came along with us this summer.
I understand why it's called Omniverse, why the art style changed, why every event happened how it did, why Ben was always protected in battle by the Omnitrix. The growth of Ben was not passed on his ego or personality, but in his ability to be exactly who he is, being this stubborn kid with the weight of all of time being on his shoulders. He is his own creator in a way. I don't just think that Omniverse is a good entry into the world of Ben 10, but a great one. It takes the sci-fi elements and cranks them up to 11 without sacrificing what made Ben 10 special in the first place. Sure, the intricacies are a lot more vast here compared to something like the OG series, but it only makes sense in hindsight, completing full circle the world of Ben 10. I wholeheartedly feel like this was a masterful way to tell the ending story, and maybe if the art style didn't change, more people like myself wouldn't have pushed it aside when when they did, giving it no mind. Yeah, the art style isn't this art style, but it gives the show a new identity that I genuinely think is worth anyone's time. Oh, yeah, and before I forget, I did tease the remains of Malware. Where did that come into play? Well, there was this one episode in the final season. Albedo again, for some reason, teams up with Vilgax as they steal the remains of Malware in order to build a suit for him, but in the end, he really wasn't a match for Ben. Well, really Skurd, but we will give Ben the credit here, it's fine. And that is Ben 10 Omniverse, a wild and ambitious entry into the Ben 10 franchise to finally put these stories of a boy with an alien watch to rest for good. Until it came time to cash back in on the property, baby. Yup, it's finally time. After 2 years, the longest gap between Ben 10 series yet, Ben 10 would return in 2016. This time more different than ever before. Let's talk about the reboot.
We're going on a road trip!
Aw, come on, Grandpa.
All right, I know, I've seen the comments. There are some very strong opinions about this iteration of the show, and trust me, I totally get that. Luckily for me, this is new territory, and I'm going into this 5th installment in the Ben 10 franchise completely blind, aside from knowing what the art style and designs now look like. So if you've never experienced the reboot yourself, consider this your guide to come along with me. It will be fun to explore what this is. And if you don't, I'll never make another long-form retrospective series like this again. I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. Anyway, in June of 2015, Cartoon Network had announced that Ben 10 would be revitalized and brought back in a new way, getting our first official look at this reboot at San Diego Comic-Con in 2016. Ben 10 The Reboot would come out 2 years after the end of Omniverse. Well, not for everyone. If you happen to live in other regions of the world like Australia, New Zealand, or within the Asia-Pacific region, then you would get to see the new Ben 10 series months in advance in October of 2016. For the US, however, we would eventually get the series in April of 2017. The reboot would end up running for a total of 4 seasons, 3 specials, 1 movie, and a major feature in a crossover event. I wonder which one I could possibly be referring to that I totally don't mention in any of my Cartoon Network related videos. Right off the bat, this show is different. And we spent time in each video here discussing how Cartoon Network would navigate these changes to never go too long with something where it can get stale, as well as adapting for the current cartoon landscape. At this point in Cartoon Network's history, like it or not, since I know it is a very opinionated topic, but the majority of cartoons that found the most success on the network basically fell into a similar art style and aesthetic. But more importantly, it's how these type of shows work. No longer is Ben 10 a 22-minute show. It is now done in 11-minute segments where the medium of animation on Cartoon Network is mainly at. Teen Titans Go focuses on a whole side market that most people overlook. Aside from endless all-day marathons of the show, that's not even scratching the surface with its secondary market. Online virality. Small 30-second to 2-minute clips that can be posted on YouTube or shared on Twitter. They quickly understood the short-form quick bits of content that the internet would quickly adopt, from Vine to TikTok to YouTube Shorts, the content online that everyone can digest in mere seconds and easily share to a friend. Heck, just the other week, Teen Titans Go had a viral clip of the newest episode that premiered that day float around Twitter trending because of how much it was being shared around and talked about. But that's just an example of what happens on a larger public scale when more people get to see it. Under the hood, Cartoon Network has channels on YouTube that solely pump out these clips of shows like Teen Titans Go or the Ben 10 Reboot, because it doesn't just promote the show, it's getting more bits of the show out there directly to where the audience spends its time more and more. Ben 10, while having major success with the legacy it had built up over the past 4 installments, wouldn't be as easily ingrained into this current landscape. So this new Ben 10 would fill that void. Now, I want to be clear, none of that is indicative of the quality of the show. Rather just something that plays a factor into the production of everything overall. In fact, I think how they went about using their Ben 10 YouTube channel aside from clip posting was pretty cool. Starting in 2017, they would post these Alien of the Week videos as a part of their Alien World series, giving us a deeper look at the lore of the aliens themselves. A fun way to give newer viewers a peek into more information not really given out within the show itself. Speaking of the show itself, when we first meet up with Ben again, or I I guess since it's a reboot, for the first time, we just jump right into him already having the Omnitrix, but still being very new to having it, not knowing the full capabilities that it holds. He is still very inexperienced, and rather than just kicking butt, he uses the aliens at his will for, well, whatever. We do see similar aliens return, albeit with new looks for the majority of them, and the newest member of the initial 10 being Overflow. Throughout the series, we would get introduced to a larger roster of more familiar faces, but a few new ones too, like Shockrock, Slapback, and Surge. But what this series does differently is the origin of Vilgax. Ben has this powerful alien called Gax, which he gets at the end of season 1, where we see a familiar face we the audience know come back to the series, Tetrax, along with other bounty hunters just like in the original series. But here they are after the Watch for other reasons. The Watch is acting up, and through a chance encounter, an alien named Vil shows up and offers a form of mentorship. But Ben eventually catches a whiff of ulterior motives, and this Vil character is able to help Ben transfer back into Ben and extract the Gax DNA from Ben's Omnitrix, and to no one's surprise, Vilgax is revealed as the combination of both Vil and Gax. Shocker, no one saw that one coming. What's more interesting here is the backstory of Vilgax being this way, being separated into two entities so his powerful Vilgax form can't be unleashed, which is why Tetrax was after the Omnitrix in the first place, to prevent this from happening, not to just solely attack Ben. And in the end of this first real encounter with Vilgax, Ben's watch issues cause him to rapidly switch through aliens, and he's able to take him down, at least for now. Throughout this reboot, we see so many familiar faces with new interpretations of the stories you and I already know from watching previous Ben 10 series. It's switching up everything we know, or we thought we knew, but not in ways that don't make it at least slightly fun, as it's not rehashing everything from before and instead trying a few new things. From Darkstar to Charmcaster, Billy Billions to Zombozo, Dr. Animo to Hex. We get some fun encounters with these villains or antagonists, but what sticks out more to me than seeing these characters again, and to point out what's changed about them from previous iterations, is the fact that Ben, Gwen, and Grandpa Max are just a bit off. Now, that sounds harsh, and I don't mean that to be. Ben is still the Ben that we've known, personality-wise, but when it comes to how him and Gwen interact, it's a lot more evident in what I mean. Ben is a lot more open to Gwen. Sure, they still have their banter, but it's not targeted in a mean way towards one another, rather more playful and usually ending up at the expense of themselves when making these comments. Gwen is a lot more, I guess, supportive is the right word I'm looking for here, often being less analytic and more cynical at Ben's expense, but actually supports him in these alien adventures. It surprisingly works well, as we spent so much time with them as characters before having such a different relationship. And it's kind of nice and a bit heartwarming that rather than being at odds constantly, that they truly are on the same side here, allowing the smaller 11-minute runtime to focus on the limited story it can tell, or save room for jokes. There's a lot of jokes here in this series, as it clearly is trying to be set up more in line with other cartoons on the network. We follow Ben and Gwen around in the Rust Bucket just like the original series, with Grandpa Max taking them around the country. And there's just something about Grandpa Max here that screams Disney to me for whatever reason. I think it's the face or the shape of the head. I don't know how to describe it other than it just feels different for sure. But also because of the voice acting as well. For Ben, Tara Strong does make a return to voice young Ben, but for Gwen we have Montse Hernandez. And for Grandpa Max we have David K. Throughout the show as well, we see Ben do something solely unique to this series, which is break the fourth wall, explaining certain things directly to the audience or to emphasize a point. The show itself is a lot more silly in nature, opting for more jokes over a deep, rich narrative. And that is not to say that there isn't that here, because there definitely is a taste of that, but that more so starts to ramp up towards the later seasons, as the main problem that I find with the show becomes a lot more clear.
Still hungry for action? Nah.
The show has this one glaring issue that feels present in almost every episode, especially when you get to the end of the series and see where it's at, versus how the series started. It wanted to be more like the playful joke-based cartoons on the air at the time, but it still wanted to be Ben 10. The reason the original 4 series worked so well played off making sure that the story was engaging, and that the comedy often came from the character interactions and their personalities rather than outright slapstick or random circumstances. Now with the average runtime cut in half with only certain major narrative plot points grouping together for a block of several episodes, the show doesn't have the luxury of that proper divide to be like the other series. But that's not me saying that it has to be like the other shows, just solely looking at what the reboot is and what it offers. It never felt like I'm on this journey with these characters, but more of a peek into random days of their lives. Sometimes things would be simple and not much really happens. Some days it's giant alien monster battles. It focuses on keeping things simple, but maybe too simple sometimes. I think as far as the show looks in general, I'm okay with the new art style, as I now have gone through my adjusting to Omniverse looking different phase, and can look past what feels unfamiliar in that sense. The colors are vivid, the animation has a nice flow to it, and I think both Ben and Gwen specifically have a bit more pizzazz with their new looks. We even go back to Kevin being a bad kid, mostly being a bully towards Ben, and eventually we see him create his own version of the Omnitrix, the Anti-Trix, because why not? Their relationship is basically that of a rivalry, and you do see more of these moments of Kevin wanting to or willing to change. Yeah, part of that once again is because of Gwen. But the kicker here for the series was the major focus on the toy market in association to the series, constantly adding some sort of new additional quote-unquote gimmick that can be applied to the toys, as here in comparison to the previous series are selling like hotcakes. Picture the powers of the Omnitrix, but it only makes the aliens more powerful, kinda like Ultimate forms, just, you know, something else new that can sell more toys. In the second season, we get introduced to Omni-enhanced versions of the aliens. It was this additive blue energy that alter the looks of the aliens slightly, as well as add that blue glow to them, giving them more power in battle, and literally a new toy line to match. Cartoon Network at this point with Ben 10 knew what worked and what didn't work in that part of the market, and made sure that they had the right juice, the right Omni-enhanced juice, to hit this reboot with the real money makers like Ben 10 hadn't already made them billions, baby. Or in season 4, bringing in Omni-Kicks enhancements, which add this high-tech armor to the aliens. And we haven't even touched upon what happened in the movie yet. From here, we would get everything in toy form. I mean, from the characters, side characters, the aliens, the other forms of the aliens, the RV, other vehicles. Man, this Rust Bucket really reminds me of this vintage Jurassic Park The Lost World toy. I had it when I was a kid and it's worth a lot more money now, and I fulfilled that need of needing it back and bought it. Yes, I'm an adult. But the reboot of Ben 10 wasn't just done after 4 seasons. Like I just said, there was a movie that would come out shortly after the end of the 4th season in October of 2020.
Go Team Tennyson!
What's a Ben 10 retrospective series episode without talking about some sort of movie, right? Well, at the end of the Ben 10 Reboot's 4th season, we were given Ben 10 versus the Universe, where Ben really doesn't feel too much of a challenge anymore facing down these enemies, since he has easily taken down pretty much every threat. As they get a call from Phil, I never even mentioned Phil. Look, all you gotta know is that he's a longtime friend of Max, and he can fix things really well. He also has an AI son. Phil brings them into his home base, located in his garage, and alerts them to a meteor that is on a collision course with Earth, threatening to take out all life on the planet. Ben, being Ben, thinks that the only way to stop this meteor is to go in all Armageddon style, and then just punch it or blow it up or something. Timely, I am talking about this as in real life we just successfully collided a satellite into an asteroid in a test effort to see if we can alter the course of oncoming meteors or asteroid threats. This was like the coolest thing I have seen in my lifetime, and we no longer need to send up Bruce Willis backed by the sounds of Aerosmith into space to stop it. But no, the internet's too busy doing anything else to care about it. What we just did was history, and it was so cool, and like 3 people care. Didn't Bill Nye ever teach you that science rules? Before Ben goes up to space, Phil lets him know that turning the dial more on the Omnitrix after his upgrade that brings forth the Omnikix armor, he can unlock an even more cooler and secret powerful upgrade to all of the aliens that adds on the Omninaut armor. You know what that means? K-pop! What? No, Casey, toys. It means toys. When Ben heads directly for the meteor, he seemingly loses control and is forced around the meteor and is sucked into a portal that opens in space. As the meteor is still heading towards Earth, we do get this touching moment with Max, Phil, and Gwen as she is panicked over Ben's disappearance. They hold each other and embrace for the impact that will end the world. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. And it turns out that the meteor wasn't a meteor at all, but a pod that still crashes on Earth with some slight forest damage that contained Vilgax, who steps out of the pod. Ben, however, finds himself floating in space and intercepted by a ship full of these frogmen. These aliens think that Ben is Vilgax in disguise and they capture him for his crimes. Max and Gwen are going to the site of the crash in hopes the signature that they have in their following is Ben, but they end up running into Kevin, who is dealing with some issues with his Antitrix. And we get a nice moment that bonds Kevin closer to Gwen and Max and comes with them in hopes that Phil can help repair and fix those issues with his device. Ben, in Space Court, once again, like he was in Omniverse, is being framed by Tetrex with old footage of Ben using Gax before Vil took it out of him. You know the story already. No one believes Ben's pleas of letting him go, so that he can go and stop the real Vilgax from destroying more worlds, and they end up trapping Ben in the null void for life as punishment for his crimes that he did not commit, but Ben gets a weird message on his Omnitrix while he's there saying he is not worthy of using the device, as the voice claims to be the creator of. I wonder who that could be. I do like that Kevin starts being good and enjoys getting praise from Max, but this nice moment is quickly ruined when Vilgax shows up, and as an explanation of why Kevin had the dream to build the Antitrix, it was planted in him by Vilgax, and in order for Vilgax to come and take it from him without having to do the hard part of, building it himself, so naturally they fight. Ben deals with some familiar alien races from previous series, which are nice to see here, as Ben fights as hard as he can to prevent them from stealing the Omnitrix. But Azimuth shows up, and they're all scared off. But now Azimuth wants the Omnitrix and just rips it off of Ben, tells him that he's the inventor of the device and that it was never meant for Ben in the first place. We get the reveal of Vilgax being a student of Azimuth, and originally the watch was meant for him, which explains why he wants it so bad in this series. Ben, wanting to know more, just annoys Azimuth until he tells him the backstory of what actually happened. From the creations he would make and not worry about the consequences or repercussions of them. We've discussed how these have played a big factor in the original series and in the follow-up older Ben series. It's hard not to compare, honestly, as everything here is completely different in a lot of ways, but we have to remember this is the reboot continuity now. As far as we're concerned, nothing else should or could affect the story here. We learn that Azimuth was the one that split Vilgax partially into the Omnitrix to stop him from using the device as a warlord and sent it into a planet he deemed to be, well, not the brightest. Never intended for an Earth kid to be the one who finds it and wears it. But Azimuth still refuses to give Ben back the Omnitrix after the story, which Ben exclaims, watch or no watch, he's gonna find a way to get out of here and go defeat Vilgax and save his family. Which sparks a bit of curiosity with Azimuth as to maybe this kid isn't just some random weakling not knowing what he's doing with the watch. So he sets a timer and places the device back onto Ben's wrist, telling him he can continue to use it only if he can pass the trial he has set for him. He must reach Azimuth before the end of the timer, but it's not as simple as it seems. Through this trial, Ben learns more about how the Omnitrix works, having more control over it. He uses his remaining time for a selfless act to help one of the other aliens in the null void, and because of this, and him learning about the device on his own, he grants him a chance to leave and head back to Earth with the watch, as Azimuth stays behind as a form of self-imprisonment. Ben also notices on his way back that the whole court who imprisoned him was getting sucked into the null void, so he saves them, and then they realize that Vilgax would never do something like that. Back on Earth, Vilgax is able to rip off the Antitrix from Kevin, strapping it to his own wrist, becoming an all-powerful alien, anti-Vilgax, putting everyone in danger with no proper way of fighting back, unless Kevin had something, like a car or whatever. Oh, yeah, that helped. He'd probably be a really good mechanic one day. For Ben's efforts saving the ship from the Null Void, they apologize to Ben and help him get home. Kevin combines with Glitch and basically becomes Iron Man to keep the fight at bay from the others. And Vilgax plants his mechamorph tentacles into the ground, changing the land around them, terraforming the Earth into Vilgax's own ideal land. At the same time, Ben confronts Tetrax before he can escape, as he finds out who he was paid by to lie in court. It was Azimuth himself, in a way to get Ben to Azimuth. He ends up letting Tetrax go peacefully to escape custody, and when this guy finds out that he isn't there, he says this:
"We'll find him. If not now, then perhaps in the next reboot."
Now that was the funniest thing said in this entire Ben 10 reboot. It was all worth it for that moment right there. As things look grim on Earth, Ben comes in hot like a meteor ready to join the fight. Vilgax needs that upgrade key inside Ben's Omnitrix, and Ben, he just needs to be a hero. But this is Ben 10. He always finds a way to stop the bad guy, but surprise, Ben is on the brink of failing, and Kevin swoops back in just in time to get the Antitrix. But it wasn't in time enough, and Vilgax absorbs the power, becoming a being of ultimate power. Alien V. Yes, the V stands for Vilgax. Do I know that for sure? No. But do I believe it does? Yes. Ben and Kevin now have to work together in this final brawl, but sadly, this isn't working. But Azimuth offers some wisdom to Ben from the test he just endured, bringing forth Way Big from the Watch, a nice homage to the original secret of the Omnitrix Vilgax, Way Big fight. The music quiets down. The rain fills that silence as these larger-than-life titans fight. Ben is able to defeat Vilgax as Space Justice comes to wrangle in Vilgax, and Azimuth just lets Ben keep the Omnitrix, ending with the road trip continuing on to Nebraska. Oh, so this is the sequel to Versus the Universe. Okay, where was all of this action and storytelling within the majority of the reboot? Clearly, towards the later seasons and then in this movie, the direction would start to shift more into this. And I like this. This gave me the feelings and excitement of the previous Ben 10 series. Sure, there was still a bunch of jokes, but it never really felt restrained from giving us that sci-fi storytelling. Some pretty fun action and a satisfying narrative to wrap pretty much everything up. While this version of events dealing with Azimuth and Vilgax may not be as good as how they were pre-reboot, it was still pretty interesting to see these big reveals happen in this series. But as far as the Ben 10 reboot, that is all there is. Just kidding, after the movie, things get even spicier with 3 more specials containing some pretty wild stories.
Cheater, cheater, lion beater.
After the movie, in April of 2021, 3 specials would come out back to back for 3 days. First starting with Ben 10,010, where we start off in the future as an invasion of Earth is taking place by the Zerg. President Gwen, along with her general Hex, try and begin preparations to fight back against the attacks. Her press secretary is none other than Zombozo. I don't know what's going on here, but hey, I'm here for it. We learned that there was some sort of falling out between Ben and Gwen some time ago, and the stakes of this battle will need to bring them back together. Her sergeant is Steam Smythe, another past villain, and Grandpa Max hasn't aged a day, because he's dead and this is just his consciousness on a computer now. There is no wasting time in this episode. The action rises quickly, and the fight for Earth begins with Gwen putting up a strong fight all on her own. Hex brings Kevin to the fight, making it a future reunion for the ages. But when the battle ends, they know another wave is soon on the way. And here we see the future hero event. Well, that certainly wasn't expected. He can't even fully transform too easily into his aliens. He's quite disheveled, and we don't even know what caused this future to happen. What separated Ben from the rest of his family? We get a taste of this when we find out that Grandpa Max is a hologram from something Ben blames himself for. That's some pretty heavy stuff. I just find it funny that everyone working at the White House or in a position of power in the government is a bad guy. I am not going to make a joke here. The Zerg being here are blamed on Ben due to the Omnitrix calling them. The only way to stop this threat is by Ben going back in time before any of this started. He would have to go back to when Max was still alive and Ben and Gwen were kids. Young Ben is in a fight with Steam Smythe as a new alien gets unlocked in his watch, the same X-shaped alien he names Surge. After the fight, older Ben brings younger Ben into the future as they both turn into Surge to take away piece by piece the giant amalgamation Zerg manifestation. At the end of the day, saving the day. This also brings back together future Ben and future Gwen from their differences and issues that separated them in the first place. It also gives Ben the confidence to put the right foot forward and become that hero again, donning that sick green jacket and ready to bounce back. It's all in all a fun little extra story that felt like a fun walk down memory lane with all the past villains. With them really not being villains, it nicely subverts expectations that give you a satisfying end and a hopeful future for Ben as an adult. Our next special would bring back a character, but not one from the world of Ben 10, but someone who has interacted with Ben before, Generator Rex. Another Man of Action creation that I absolutely love. Here though, for this special titled Ben Gen 10, they spent about 2 minutes coming up with that title, but regardless, summer vacation is quickly coming to an end, and while their traveling journeys bring them to Washington DC, Ben S'more starts talking to him. What is happening? I'll just be in therapy about this, but before Ben eats the s'more, Rex and Bobo Haha steal it and split and eat the s'more, which angers Ben as Cannonball, which they mistake for one of their bad guys from their show and think he's an Evo. So a fight breaks out and Rex hopes that his powers will work, similar to Ben hoping his watch doesn't let him down. And I don't know if it's just the new art style for Rex and him being a lot smaller and seemingly younger, but this sword looks huge compared to how small Rex is, and I just find it very funny. Ben's Omnitrix gets all scattered thanks to the nanites from Rex and shoots out all of these alien powers onto civilians around him. And then eventually everyone around the, this area is a big population. This is a nightmare. It's even affecting his loved ones. A massive ship touches down as we get to see Agent 6 come around trying to contain Ben as he is the source of the outbreak. Rex steps in to fight with Ben against Agent 6, who is trying to capture Rex as well. Hex is around to cause even more mayhem, being able to control the people who are now aliens. So Ben, Rex, and Bobo all fully team up. 6 is ready to annihilate the outbreak of aliens or Evos or whatever they think they are at this point. Hex, though, is in control and surrounds them all, forcing Agent 6 to trust in Ben and Rex to come up with a plan to reverse everything, and if it can work, he'll call off the termination. They end up coming together in the same way that this accident started, and are able to transform everyone back into humans. They defeat Hex, and he gets put into custody. While this episode is silly fun and we get to see, at least for me, some characters I really enjoy, they really aren't the same, as the story here is not really the same as Generator Rex proper. So it's kind of whatever. I also don't feel like it's some sort of secret backdoor pilot to reinvent Generator Rex in the same way the Ben 10 reboot did for Ben 10 in general. I like it, but that doesn't mean I want more of it. I hope it just stays as this little end of the series special. Also, Ben questions how Agent 6 got his title of the 6th most dangerous man on the planet, which I've asked that too. Where, how, and who measures that metric? Our final episode special for the Ben 10 reboot, and probably most important one, is Alien Extinction. Here, it's just more Ben and Grandpa out camping in the woods like usual, just without Gwen. But then a celestial sapien shows up looking for a fight and steals Ben's Omnitrix, and a different Max shows up to help them recover from the attack, telling him that his Omnitrix is gone forever. We follow this Max back to his ship as we hear him call this celestial sapien Alien X, and that different dimensions of Bens have been targeted. We see another universe Ben in a battle with Zombozo, but after that fight, Alien X shows up and starts whipping butt. And the original opening with just Ben and Max clue us in to Gwen being at summer school, so that wasn't our Ben reboot prime. This current Ben we are following is the main Ben. He is struggling with not being able to shine as the standout one in these battles, since he has the alien powers but feels overly aided by Gwen and Max. which leaves us with some awkward silence between them for a moment. The Traveling Through Dimensions Max shows up to explain that Alien X is traveling the Omniverse collecting the Omnitrixes from Ben's, and in this Max's case, killing off his Ben, who was in the art style of the Omniverse series. When Alien X catches up with them, we truly get to see how dangerous and all-powerful Alien X is. He's basically undefeatable. After all this time, over all the series, we would only get some cool moments and glimpses into Alien X and the Celestial Sapiens. Alien X successfully takes the watch and leaves, which, thanks to the failsafe on Ben's watch, as not all Omnitrixes have it, it didn't cost Ben his life. While figuring out what needs to happen next, a portal opens up and out walks Chroma Stone, who turns out to be another Ben, this time a Ben that represents the Alien Force era. This Ben talks about the plumbers, which our main reboot Ben and Gwen do not know about.
Shouldn't you be called, like, Alien Force or something?
Man, they really saved a lot of these good jokes right for the end of the show. And now having a Ben who can travel the Omniverse, they set up a plan to travel, find another Omnitrix, and bring it back. So it'll be two Bens against one all-powerful god, essentially. Yeah, I'm sure nothing will go wrong. While waiting for the traveling Max to come back, they try and rig up some traps in a closed amusement park. But Alien X shows up before the second Omnitrix is brought back, and all of the traps aren't really holding him off, so it's basically working as a distraction for now. Then Max returns with another Ben, this time from Ultimate Alien, who has the Ultimatrix. This begs the question though, which Ben is the real prime version of Ben? It's a fun discussion because of all the consistencies and references, but adding on all of the small details that don't add up make it debatable if these Bens we see are even the same Bens we've known from the past series. The Omniverse is vast and can be full of very close variants of Ben 10 that are meant to just give a fun throwback to the previous eras. Is Reboot Ben our real Ben? Still, at this point, they are no match for Alien X, so they decide that they need as many remaining Bens who still have their watches to come in for backup for the fight. As Reboot Ben goes with the other Max to find more Bens to easily convince them to come over and help them, he quickly returns with a few more Bens, or two Bens, one Gwen. One Ben that resembles the OG series Ben, another one that is supposed to represent Omniverse, unlike the other one who did too, but you know, he got killed off. And of course, making her appearance all the way from that one non-canon alternate episode from the original series that is canon, it's just in a different dimension, Gwen 10. All of the Bens learn to work together, all ages, all different versions coming together. It's hero time. Oh look, it's Pokemon the first movie. They all attack together at once and are able to remove Reboot Ben's Omnitrix so he can join the fight, becoming Heat Blast, as he calls him a classic, referencing Heat Blast being the first alien we ever meet in the entire franchise. Eventually they are able to pull off a bunch of the Omnitrix from Alien X, with one left to go as he gets captured and then turns back into a Ben that had went down a path of doing everything on his own rather than having a team and others around that have your back, juxtaposing Reboot Ben's wishes of not having a team at the time. His story of becoming this way is losing Gwen and Max in a fight with Vilgax by them trying to join in on the fight after he told them he could handle it. This loss sparked him to be this hardened solo savior of the Omniverse. And if he lost everything, why should every other Ben not have the same? The other Max offers an extension of family, mentioning a second chance to have a family again, while still having to pay for his crimes with a bit of time in the null void. It'll go by quick. This Max no longer has that family of his own, so it would be a good fit to give them both a second chance together, even if this Ben killed this Max's Ben. You can assume that it all takes place within one giant omniverse with infinite possibilities, and the Ben we could be following is only a prime Ben within this reboot version of the show, while our other prime Ben could be the prime Ben from a different dimension, and we only consider who we are technically following as our definitive prime Ben. Who's to say that there is no prime timeline? It's just the Ben we are given to be our vessel into the world itself. Whiteboard, how we feeling? Yeah, that's easy to understand. Thanks. Overall, it's a really fun episode that does a good job at being the finale to the reboot, showing love and respect for all of the years and series of Ben 10 that came before, from the writing and how the jokes play into the absurdness of it all, to the fun story, it was a very nice send-off for the franchise as a whole. Plus, I just love the duality of Grandpa Maxes here. The Reboot Max being this non-aggressive, pretty chill and ultra nice guy, and the other Max being this hardened fighter who doesn't have patience for anything, mostly speaking with a more aggressive and assertive tone. And our original Prime Grandpa Max from the OG series was kind of that perfect middle blend of these two. In the end, whether you enjoy the reboot of Ben 10 or not, the show can still be seen as a possible alternative timeline to the original series, or just a standalone reboot, both playing by the rules set up in the previous iterations of the show, and being something all its own. That's kind of the beauty set up within the world of Ben 10. And in other words, of course I have to mention the OKKO Let's Be Heroes crossover Nexus event, where aside from all the other cameos within that we've talked about before, one of the main characters in this special is the Reboot Ben himself, with the Omnitrix turning him into other legacy Cartoon Network characters to deliver a powerful blow during the final battle. You know I just couldn't resist mentioning that.
Where is everyone?
Now, while I may have had fun discussing both of these iterations of Ben 10 and myself personally really liking Omniverse, back when these two series both came out, there was a big split that started to happen within the fan base. Omniverse was criticized by fans for toning the show down in an effort to keep it at a younger audience level, as well as trying to inject more humor into it. Plus, the retcons also pushed fans away because messing with the continuity can sometimes be a big turnoff. And while some, like myself, don't overall mind most of the changes in favor of getting the ending we got with Omniverse, for others, it hindered their experience. And whether you like that or not, you are valid in your opinions. And while a reboot is a reboot, the original series fans are always going to have a form of comparison between the two, even if they are trying to go in it with an open mind. I personally don't love a lot of what the reboot had to offer, but it was never too offensive towards the original series. In fact, it worked hard to always show love to the classic continuity. But with so many decisions in the show, even when they are taking stories to adapt and redo them, do feel like the focus was too far away from what Ben 10 was. Albeit the later half of the reboot and the ending specials do feel like a nice reward for making it through the tonal issues the show faced. But with this back-to-back combo of fans no longer being interested, the sales for Omniverse toys were heavily affected. The reboot was okay because of a new audience that it captured, but after such a major build-up for many with the original series, Alien Force and Ultimate Alien, there was a significant fall-off from the franchise, at least going forward. The OG fanbase still loves and supports the majority of the prior, choosing to stay at the higher points of the franchise and not explore the perceived lower points.
Ah! Get away from me!
Now, of course, there were games for both Omniverse and the reboot. First, there was Ben 10 Omniverse that released on the Nintendo DS, 3DS, Wii, Wii U, Xbox 360, and PlayStation 3. It was your typical action beat-em-up that had a two-player element to it, since you have Rook with you, either controlled by the computer or by another person. There was Omniverse 2, which was essentially just more of the same, being a direct sequel and all that. Only this time it did not release for the original Nintendo DS. For the reboot, there was a self-titled Ben 10 game released for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch. It played most similar to like a Skylanders game, as you traverse some basic level designs and beat up some bad guys with the ability to transform into his first 10 aliens in the reboot. The second reboot game, Power Trip, adds a lot more of the characters, enemies, and more from the series, coming out on all the same consoles as the last one, and plays more as a platforming beat-em-up with more of an open world to traverse and explore. And maybe one day I'll even deep dive these games further on my brand new Jordan Fringe gaming channel. Look, I already have a brand new video over there right now. Check it out after this one. Now, as we round out our long multi-dimensional journey here, from the show to the games to the toys and much, much more, to say Ben 10 was successful just feels like an understatement. And addressing the success of just the toy market for Ben 10, the main goal was to make a good product, and that the toy market as a creator future should not be the thing you have on your mind first, going by the statement of if it's good, it'll translate to sales of toys. People tend to have a radar to know when it feels that they are being marketed to with no genuine creative nature behind the product. Ben 10 was able to launch a great show, a great property, and that turned into a hit. No, a jackpot for the merchandise side of things. From the game shows that were solely themed around the series, a live touring stage show, a Minecraft DLC pack, the reach, the exposure, and the notoriety that the show had, all stemming off of just a random rapid pitch within a selection of 20, becoming this legacy title for Cartoon Network that had 5 different series being able to last as long as it did thanks to constantly playing with the style of the show to fit the era of Cartoon Network it would premiere in. But what now? The reboot at this point has been over for a good little while. Does the series pivot again to a new look and art style? A new sequel series to the reboot? Some form of live action or a movie? Where and how is Ben 10 going to pop up again? Because it's not a matter of if, it's really just a matter of when. One of the men of action, Duncan Rolu, had mentioned when asked about some future plans on Twitter that we are developing many options. The changing fields of platforms from cable to streaming, the consolidation of WB franchises, and 1,000 other factors will determine where, how, and when Ben's next iteration will finally settle. It's safe to say that there are plans in the work for the next big return to the franchise, but as of right now, these are just rumors and whispers of what would be next. There are no real updates just yet, but I'd love to hear in the comments what you'd like to see next from the franchise. If you'd ask me to describe Ben 10, I would say it's ambitious, complex, and large, but at the same time flawed and sometimes incoherent and full of retcons. But I don't know if I'd want to change that. It made the journey of getting through the franchise enjoyable, giving me, the viewer, a chance to follow along with the lore and to see how different series roll back or change ideas laid out before, leading to your own theories of the multiverse, timelines, what truly is prime canon and what's not, and maybe the greatest thing that has come from this is the larger fan base of the show. Getting to meet and talk with other fans, hear how passionate they are, and hear their thoughts on why they love the show. Hearing theories or making your own creations like Rob or Kiro the artist's amazing work in creating, writing, and illustrating his 5 Years Later series, expanding on his take on what he would like to see. And to add on to that, the incredible work he does with Kellen, Hershey, Ryan, Avery, and everyone at the Inktake YouTube channel, becoming the definitive lore keepers and explorers of the intricacies of Ben 10. A huge shout out to them and everything that they do. But I also want to give a big shout out to you, and I want to say a huge thank you to all of you who have watched these videos, as I have never worked on a project so ambitious to what I'm used to making. It means so much to me. If you made it all the way through this video, and even the other 2 parts, tell me in the comments. I want to know who actually made it to this exact point. If you enjoyed this video and the series, please do me a big favor and hit the like button for me and subscribe with notifications on for more content like this. Click the join button to become a member and help support the channel. Follow me on Twitter, and I'll be back with another video soon, but until then, later.